They said it couldn't be done. They said nobody could touch the Beast Incarnate. They said Brock Lesnar was untouchable, unstoppable, and that anyone who dared step into his path would be decimated without mercy. But on Monday Night Raw, two absolute monsters proved every single one of those so-called experts dead wrong. And if you think what happened was just another wrestling storyline, you're about to have your mind completely blown by the sheer brutality and calculated revenge that unfolded right before our eyes. What you witnessed wasn't just an attack, it was a systematic dismantling of everything Brock Lesnar represents in professional wrestling. And the most infuriating part? The WWE Universe has been begging for someone, anyone, to finally put Lesnar in his place for years, and when it finally happened, half the so-called wrestling experts are crying about it being too violent or crossing the line. Are you kidding me right now? Let me paint you the picture of what really went down, because if you blinked, you missed the most significant shift in WWE's power structure in over a decade. Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker didn't just attack Brock Lesnar, they orchestrated a masterpiece of revenge that was months, maybe even years in the making. And the fact that some people are calling it uncalled for shows just how blind they've been to the systematic bullying and intimidation Lesnar has been dishing out since his return. Here's what happened. Lesnar was cutting his typical arrogant promo in the middle of the ring, talking about how he's the alpha predator and how nobody in the locker room has what it takes to challenge him. Same old Brock, same old boring intimidation tactics that have gotten stale over the past few years. But then the lights went out. And when they came back on, Reed and Breakker were standing behind him like two absolute units ready for war. The look on Lesnar's face when he turned around was priceless. For the first time in forever, we saw genuine shock and maybe even a hint of fear in the Beast's eyes. Because he knew, we all knew, that he was looking at two men who could legitimately match his intensity and physical dominance. And what happened next was nothing short of poetic justice. Reed hit Lesnar with a tsunami that shook the entire arena. I'm talking about a splash so devastating that you could hear the impact in the cheap seats. But that was just the beginning. Breakker followed up with a spear that would make Goldberg jealous, driving Lesnar through the announce table like it was made of paper. And the crowd? They were going absolutely insane with approval. But here's where it gets really interesting, and why I'm so frustrated with the wrestling purists who are complaining about this angle. This wasn't random violence, this was calculated revenge with layers of storytelling that most fans completely missed. Let me break down why this attack was not only justified but absolutely necessary for the future of WWE. First, let's talk about Bronson Reed's motivation. This man has been grinding in WWE for years, putting on incredible matches and showing nothing but respect for the business. But every time he's built momentum, guess who shows up to squash it? That's right, Brock Lesnar. Reed has been on the receiving end of Lesnar's "I'm too good for full-time wrestling" attitude more times than anyone should have to endure. So when Reed finally got his hands on Lesnar, it wasn't just an attack, it was years of frustration and disrespect being paid back with interest. And Bron Breakker? Don't even get me started on how Lesnar has treated this incredible athlete. Breakker represents everything that's right about the new generation of WWE superstars. He's athletic, charismatic, and actually cares about being there every single week. But Lesnar has consistently undermined Breakker's pushes by showing up sporadically and demanding top billing without putting in the work. The disrespect has been blatant and infuriating to watch. So when these two powerhouses finally decided they'd had enough, they didn't just send a message, they rewrote the entire landscape of WWE's main event scene. And the execution was flawless. They waited for the perfect moment when Lesnar was at his most arrogant and vulnerable, and they struck with surgical precision. Now here's a question for all you WWE fans watching. Do you think Lesnar saw this coming, or was he genuinely caught off guard by Reed and Breakker's coordinated assault? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I have a theory that this has been building for much longer than most people realize. The psychology behind this attack is what separates it from your typical wrestling angle. Reed and Breakker didn't just want to hurt Lesnar, they wanted to humiliate him. They wanted to strip away that aura of invincibility that has protected him for so long. And they succeeded in ways that will have lasting consequences for months to come. Think about it, when was the last time you saw Brock Lesnar actually selling an attack like he was genuinely hurt? When was the last time he looked vulnerable instead of just mildly annoyed? Reed and Breakker managed to do something that Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and countless other top-tier wrestlers couldn't accomplish. They made Lesnar look human. But the most brilliant part of this entire angle is how it exposes the hypocrisy in wrestling fandom. For years, fans have complained that Lesnar doesn't care about the business, that he only shows up for big paychecks, and that he buries younger talent. But the moment two younger wrestlers actually do something about it, suddenly everyone's concerned about crossing the line and going too far. Are you serious right now? This is the same Brock Lesnar who legitimately gave Roman Reigns a concussion, who stiffed countless wrestlers because he was keeping it real, and who has shown zero respect for anyone not named Paul Heyman for the better part of a decade. But Reed and Breakker give him a taste of his own medicine, and suddenly we need to clutch our pearls? The double standard is absolutely infuriating, and it shows why WWE was right to let Reed and Breakker handle their business the way they did. Sometimes the only way to deal with a bully is to become the bigger bully, and that's exactly what happened on Monday Night Raw. Let's talk about the technical execution of this beatdown because it was a masterclass in professional wrestling storytelling. Reed's tsunami wasn't just a big splash, it was a statement that size and power aren't exclusive to Brock Lesnar. The way Reed positioned himself and delivered that move showed years of preparation and planning. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision, it was a calculated strike designed for maximum impact. Breaker's spear through the announce table was equally impressive from a storytelling perspective. He didn't just tackle Lesnar, he drove him through the table with enough force to make it look like he was trying to put him through the floor beneath it. The symbolism was perfect, the announce table represents the barrier between wrestlers and the real world, and Breaker literally drove Lesnar through that barrier into reality. And the aftermath? Pure gold. Lesnar lying in the wreckage, looking more vulnerable than we've seen him in years, while Reed and Breaker stood over him like conquering heroes. The visual storytelling was so powerful that it didn't need commentary, the image spoke for itself. But here's where it gets even more interesting, the crowd's reaction told the whole story of why this angle works so perfectly. The initial shock when the lights went out, the explosive cheers when Reed and Breaker revealed themselves, and the sustained roar of approval throughout the entire beatdown, that's not the reaction of a crowd that thinks the good guys are going too far. That's the reaction of fans who have been waiting for justice for years. Another question for the comments, what do you think was going through Triple H's mind when he saw this attack unfold? Do you think this was planned by WWE management, or did Reed and Breaker go into business for themselves? I have some thoughts on this that might surprise you. The ripple effects of this attack are going to be felt for months, and anyone who thinks this is just going to blow over clearly doesn't understand the magnitude of what just happened. Reed and Breaker didn't just attack Brock Lesnar, they declared war on the entire part-time wrestler system that has held WWE back for years. Think about the message this sends to every other part-time wrestler who thinks they can waltz back into WWE whenever they feel like it and immediately get handed main event spots. Think about the message it sends to full-time wrestlers who have been grinding every single week while guys like Lesnar collect massive paychecks for minimal effort. This attack was about way more than personal revenge, it was about the soul of professional wrestling. And let's be honest about something else, Lesnar had this coming for a long time. His attitude toward younger wrestlers has been dismissive at best and openly hostile at worst. The stories about him refusing to put people over, demanding special treatment, and generally acting like he's above the business are legendary backstage. So when two wrestlers who actually respect the business finally decided to do something about it, they were speaking for an entire locker room that has been frustrated for years. The technical aspects of what Reed and Breaker accomplished cannot be overstated. To coordinate an attack of this magnitude on live television, with perfect timing and flawless execution, requires weeks of planning and incredible trust between partners. These two men put their careers on the line to make a statement, and they did it with surgical precision. Reed's positioning for the tsunami was absolutely perfect, he waited until Lesnar was in exactly the right spot, then delivered the move with picture-perfect form. The impact was so devastating that you could see Lesnar's body compress under the weight, and the way Reed held the position afterward showed complete confidence in what he had just accomplished. Breaker's spear was equally impressive from a technical standpoint. The angle of impact, the follow-through that drove both men through the table, and the way he immediately popped up afterward to survey the damage, every aspect of that move was executed with professional precision. But beyond the technical execution, what made this attack so compelling was the emotion behind it. You could see years of frustration and disrespect being channeled into every move. This wasn't just choreographed violence, it was cathartic release for two wrestlers who had finally reached their breaking point. Here's another question for the comments section, do you think WWE management knew this was coming, or were they as shocked as everyone else when Reed and Breaker made their move? The backstage politics of this situation are probably more complex than most fans realize. The aftermath of this attack is going to reshape WWE's entire main event landscape, and anyone who doesn't see that is missing the bigger picture. Reed and Breaker didn't just make a statement, they created a power vacuum that's going to have consequences for months to come. Lesnar's aura of invincibility has been shattered, and once that mystique is gone, it's almost impossible to get back. Ask any wrestler who's been in the business for more than 5 minutes, perception is reality in professional wrestling, and the perception now is that Brock Lesnar can be beaten, hurt, and humiliated just like anyone else. This is going to change everything about how WWE books Lesnar going forward. He can't just show up and demand to be treated like an unstoppable force anymore, because everyone saw him get dismantled by two wrestlers who were hungrier and more prepared than he was. The power dynamic has shifted permanently, and for Reed and Breaker, this attack establishes them as legitimate main event players in a way that years of traditional booking never could have accomplished. They didn't just beat Brock Lesnar, they dominated him so completely that there's no question about their credibility going forward. The psychology of what just happened runs so much deeper than most fans realize, and it's honestly frustrating to see people dismiss this as just another wrestling angle. This was a masterpiece of long-term storytelling that addressed real issues within WWE's booking philosophy and talent hierarchy. For too long, part-time wrestlers have been given preferential treatment over full-time talent who actually care about being there every week. Reed and Breaker's attack was a direct challenge to that system, and the fact that they succeeded so completely sends a message that can't be ignored. The visual impact of seeing Lesnar laid out in the wreckage of the announce table, with Reed and Breaker standing over him like conquering warriors, is going to be replayed for years to come. That's the kind of iconic moment that defines careers and changes the trajectory of entire storylines. But what happens next is going to be even more interesting than what we've already seen. How does Lesnar respond to being humiliated on such a massive scale? How does WWE management handle the fallout from such a brutal and public beatdown? And most importantly, how do Reed and Breaker follow up on what might be the most impactful debut statement in WWE history? One final question for everyone watching: do you think this attack was justified given Lesnar's track record of disrespecting younger talent, or do you think Reed and Breaker went too far in their pursuit of revenge? Your answer might reveal more about your understanding of wrestling psychology than you realize. The bottom line is this: Monday Night Raw witnessed something special, something that's going to be talked about for years to come. Reed and Breaker didn't just attack Brock Lesnar, they revolutionized WWE's power structure in one perfectly executed moment of sweet, brutal revenge. And if you can't appreciate the artistry and long-term storytelling implications of what just happened, then you're missing out on one of the most significant moments in modern wrestling history. This is just the beginning of a new era in WWE, and Reed and Breaker just announced themselves as the leaders of that revolution in the most emphatic way possible. The Beast has been conquered, and the landscape of professional wrestling will never be the same.